Panasonic plunges the most in decades. It sees the second highest loss in its history. Barclays faces another record fine, this time for alleged energy market manipulation. And Obama tours a storm-ravaged New Jersey as the number killed from Sandy rises.
We are here for you, and we will not forget. We will follow up to make sure that you get all the help that you need until you've rebuilt.
The latest on the aftermath of Storm Sandy. It's past, but the battle to repair the damage is far from over. President Barack Obama has been touring New Jersey with the state governor, Chris Christie. They examined devastation by helicopter before meeting residents.
When all of you look around and you see all this destruction, that's fine. But you know what? All that stuff can be replaced. You look to your right and to your left, to your husband or wife, your son or your daughter, right? Those are the things that can't be replaced. And so I'm glad that we don't have that kind of loss of life to have to deal with.
President Obama praised volunteers and assured residents that damaged communities would get all the help they need. Most mass transit systems in New Jersey remain shut. Half of all homes and businesses are without power, and the state's death toll has risen to 8. Scenes in Lisbon last night as angry protesters demonstrated outside Parliament. They were reacting to the approval of next year's national budget. It includes spending cuts of nearly €3 billion and plans to lay off 2% of public workers. And this was the scene in Athens as protesters descended on Parliament there as well. They were also reacting to their country's new budget. Greece has unveiled €9 billion in austerity measures, which includes cuts to wages, pensions and benefits. Well, let's get the market reaction to all this here in Europe. Jonathan Ferro is here with a first look at the European markets, taking a look at futures, what we're looking at.
Little changed, Owen. Same with the euro too, really. But if you check out the moves yesterday, really, it's that situation in Greece.
Yeah, it was Greece that really started weighing on investors' minds again. It always rears its ugly head now and again, doesn't it?
That conference call with the European finance ministers on Greece, you know, they're pleading for that €31 billion aid payment in November. And the European governments are basically telling them, you want the money, rein in the deficit, make more cuts. This is the country faces its 6th year in recession, Owen.
Australia slows. The weakest consumer demand since 2010 weighs on growth. Stake sale. HSBC gets $9.4 billion for its share of Ping An. And one-on-one with Obama in a Bloomberg exclusive, the president lays out this ultimatum for a budget deal.
We're going to have to see the rates on the top 2% go up, and we're not going to be able to get a deal without it.
No budget deal unless the rich pay more. That's the message from President Obama. He says he's prepared to take the US economy over the fiscal cliff if Republicans do not accept higher tax rates for top earners. Well, Obama spoke exclusively to Bloomberg's Juliana Goldman in his first TV interview since re-election.
We are not going to simply cut our way to prosperity or to cut our way out of this deficit problem that we have. We're going to need more revenues, and in order to do that, that starts with higher rates for the folks at the top. And the reason, again, I want to repeat, Juliana, the reason I say that is not to punish success or go after folks just because they're wealthy. It's a simple proposition that you can't raise enough revenue. And if you don't raise enough revenue through closing loopholes and deductions, then it's going to be middle-class families who make up the difference.
Up next on First Look, Australia's economy may have unexpectedly slowed, but Treasurer Wayne Swan remains optimistic. Hear from him next. And hear from someone who correctly predicted that slowdown. That's Paul Bloxham, Chief Economist at HSBC Bank Australia. He'll be joining us live from Sydney.
No compromise on the budget in Brussels. European Union leaders have failed to break down divisions between rich and poor members, and a deal is unlikely anytime soon. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says that leaders will probably have to meet again next year.
Everybody has to make a compromise and be able to make a compromise. We know each other very well, but maybe we will need a second meeting. but this will be decided tomorrow.
The latest draft of the budget called for 973 billion euros of spending between 2014 and 2020. That is 6% lower than the original proposal. Nations that give the most to Europe, such as Germany, Britain and the Netherlands, say that's still too much. But poor nations like Greece, Poland and Italy say it's not enough.
For us, it's absolutely essential that Italy gets better results than the ones we've got until today. And the ones provided on cohesion funds, on agriculture funds and also on the contribution mechanism. We won't accept any solution that we consider unacceptable.
Olam International says that it has enough cash to cope with market stress, but that's failing to lift its shares in Singapore. The world's second biggest rice trader is struggling to reassure investors after short-selling firm Muddy Waters questions its accounting methods. Olam is suing the company's founder, Carson Block, for slander. Haslinda Amin has more for us from Singapore on the scandal. Haslinda.
Well, Lindsay, Olam makes another case for its financial position. It says the company is sound. It has enough liquidity, enough money to meet its financial obligations. It can withstand stress in the capital markets. Its auditors, Ernst & Young, say they stand by their audit opinions. They were prepared in accordance with Singapore's reporting standards. Now, if you don't already know, Olam is the world's second largest rice trader. Its shares are down about 3% since the saga started 4 days ago. And today, further decline of about 2% has been tit for tat. Olam says the comments by Muddy Waters were intended to create panic among its shareholders. Muddy Waters responded. It says it's never seen a response as defensive as Olam's. Now, the case with the Singapore High Court, Olam is seeking unspecified damages, costs, and an injunction against a repeat of Block's comments. Recapping, Olam shares down about 2% right now. Lindsay.
Haslinda, thank you. And Russia's largest lender has spent $4 billion in acquisitions this year. But speaking to Bloomberg, Sberbank CEO says he's done enough deals for now.
We're big enough now, and we don't have plans to grow more than 15% a year. Organic growth and very good services and very good control of our risks. This is our goal.
Argentina's economy minister has vowed to fight a court decision ordering it to pay more than $1.3 billion to holders of defaulted securities. The U.S. judge said they have the right to receive all the principal and interest they are owed when Argentina makes payments on its restructured bonds next month.
If a judge can declare that a payment system is what he says it is and what he says must be done, whether it be in his jurisdiction or in another part of the world, whether it be in New York or Belgium or Luxembourg or in the United States, clearly we believe that it exceeds the matter involving Argentina, and these are among the arguments that we plan to use when we appeal on Monday.
Well, the ruling's a big win for hedge funds, Elliott Associates and Aurelius Capital. They did not accept Argentina's debt swaps in 2005 and 2010, but they still might not get their money. Argentina's President Cristina Fernandez calls the companies vulture funds and says she won't pay a single dollar. That could trigger another big default, this time totaling more than $20 billion. Well, Fernandez was not the only one who didn't like the ruling. Look how Argentinian stocks reacted. Yesterday, they dropped the most in a month, down more than 3%.
PICC shares surge after Hong Kong's biggest public offering in 2 years. High return for high fashion. Prada rises to a record as profit beats. And made in America, Apple moves manufacturing stateside and its biggest Chinese supplier follows suit. A US federal judge has urged Apple and Samsung to end their legal battles worldwide. Lucy Coe says it's time for global peace after lawyers for the two companies returned to court. Now, back in August, a jury had ordered Samsung to pay more than $1 billion in damages for Apple for infringing its patents and technology. Samsung is appealing against that verdict to get out of paying the hefty penalty. Meanwhile, Apple wants another $500 million in damages, as well as permanent bans on some Samsung phones in the States. In a wide-ranging interview with Bloomberg Businessweek, Apple CEO Tim Cook said, quote, "I hate litigation. I absolutely hate it." He went on to say, "We felt we had no other choice." Something else Cook said, he'll bring some manufacturing back to America and he'll spend more than $100 million next year to build Mac computers in the States. Cook also plans to shift a small portion of manufacturing away from China. The country's assembled Apple products for years. Well, Stephen Engel has more from Beijing. Stephen, how much of a surprise move is this then from Tim Cook?
Well, I think it's an interesting move, given the fact that there was lots of rhetoric on the campaign trail in the U.S. about bringing jobs back to the United States. This might be more symbolic than actual, relevant to the bottom line at Apple, since the Mac and MacBooks make up a relatively smaller portion of revenue compared to the iPad and the iPhone. But it will be interesting as they spend that $100 million. They haven't announced who's going to be making them in the United States, but it will happen next year. Of course, Taiwan-based Foxconn assembles most Apple products in its China factories. In fact, this iPhone right here, it says right on the back, designed by Apple in California, assembled in China. And again, CEO Tim Cook says more components than you think actually originate in America.
This iPhone, as a matter of fact, the engine in here is made in America. And not only are the engines in here made in America, but engines are made in America and are exported. The glass on this phone is made in Kentucky. And so we've been working for years on doing more and more in the United States. Next year, we will do one of our existing Mac lines in the United States.
We don't know who will make them in the United States, but Foxconn has said, Owen, that it plans to expand its operations in North America. More customers, they say, are asking for products to be made in the USA. Back to you.
Stephen Engel, thanks. Australia's trade deficit has widened to just over $2 billion. That's less than economists were expecting, but it's still the biggest deficit since March 2008. Bloomberg's Dan Petrie is in Sydney to take us through the numbers. Dan, great to see you.
Owen, it's great to see you, and it's the end of what can only be described as a mammoth week of economic data here in Australia. Quite a positive result, really. What we saw in this quarter was a resurgence in the iron ore exports, in fact $4.7 billion. But what happened, the overall picture here in exports came in at just over $24 billion. The services sector did very, very well. In fact, that's now over at $4.3 billion and surprisingly strong coming out of Australia. And of course, agriculture is now also delivering exports in excess of $3 billion. So there are good stories here, but that strong Aussie dollar, still just under 105 at the moment, is seeing the import factor really starting to exceed the export factor. In fact, $26.5 billion worth of goods are now flowing into Australia. So at the moment we are seeing quite a positive result, for example, on the trade. So what we are seeing here as a proxy for China, that we've seen that leadership transition bed down and that orders are ramping up, and the fourth quarter is very, very strong, Owen. So this, whilst it wasn't a great result in terms of overall deficit, it's been seen as a positive. And one thing which is good about Australians is they are a positive people and delivering the services and goods to the rest of the world.
More bad luck for the software legend John McAfee. A day after being nabbed by police in Guatemala, he suffered a possible heart attack. He was taken to hospital after falling ill in a detention cell. McAfee was arrested by Guatemalan police on charges of entering the country illegally. He fled there to avoid authorities in neighbouring Belize, where he's wanted for questioning about the shooting of his neighbour. McAfee told Bloomberg earlier this week, "I'm innocent." Up next on First Look, the clock is ticking, but still no solution in sight. Is America really on course to avert the impending fiscal cliff? And to more Americans back in work, Bloomberg's Alex Steele will preview the non-farm payrolls. And we'll also get more analysis from Richard Jerram. He's the chief economist at the Bank of Singapore, who's joining us next, live on